Hello everyone, and welcome back to the How to Better English podcast. I am Liam, and I am so happy to be here with you all today for another session of learning and conversation.
And I am Emma. It is wonderful to be back in the studio. I have been looking forward to this episode all week, Liam. We have such a great topic lined up for our listeners today.
We definitely do. But before we dive into the world of hobbies and interests, we have a quick favor to ask our community. If you are enjoying these episodes, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It really helps the show grow and allows us to keep bringing you this content every week.
Absolutely, and we want to hear from you right now. Please head down to the comment section and tell us how this specific episode is going to help you in your life or your English journey. What specific problem with your English will this solve for you today? We are very pleased to read your comments, and we make it a point to read every single one of them because your growth is what matters most to us.
That is so true, Emma. I love seeing the notifications pop up when someone shares their personal goals. It makes this feel like a real conversation. Speaking of conversation, today we are talking about how to talk about hobbies in English. This is one of those essential topics because it is the foundation of small talk and building deeper friendships.
It really is. When you meet someone new, whether it is at a party, a networking event, or even in a job interview, the question of what you do in your spare time almost always comes up. It is a way to see the human side of someone beyond their job title or their academic background.
Exactly. But a lot of learners get stuck using the same basic phrases like, I like soccer, or my hobby is reading. While those are grammatically correct, they do not really help you connect on a deeper level. Today, we want to give you the tools to describe your interests with more variety and sophistication.
We have some great vocabulary words to explore today, like passion project, dabble in, and master a skill. These words allow you to show your level of commitment and your personality through the way you describe your activities.
Let us start with the basics first. Emma, when someone asks you what do you do for fun, how do you usually respond?
Well, if I am being natural, I usually avoid the word hobby entirely. In modern English, we do not often say, my hobby is. Instead, we say things like, I am really into gardening, or I spend a lot of my time hiking. It feels more fluid.
That is a great point. Using the phrase I am into something is such a common way to express interest. It implies that you are involved in it. For example, I have been really into podcasting lately, obviously, but also I have been getting into distance running.
Distance running sounds intense, Liam. That leads us perfectly into our first big vocabulary term, mastering a skill. When you talk about something like running or playing an instrument, where you are trying to get better and better, you are on a journey to master a skill.
Precisely. To master a skill means to gain complete knowledge or great proficiency in something. It suggests a high level of dedication. For instance, if you are learning the piano and you practice for 2 hours every single day, you are working to master the instrument. It sounds much more impressive than just saying, I play piano.
It shows a sense of discipline. On the opposite side of that, we have the phrase dabble in. This is one of my favorite expressions. To dabble in something means to do it as a hobby in a casual or superficial way. You are not trying to become a world expert. You are just trying it out for fun.
I love that word. I definitely dabble in a lot of things. Last month, I dabbled in watercolor painting. I bought a small kit, tried a few landscapes, and realized I am not very good at it. But I enjoyed the process. I am not trying to master it. I am just dabbling.
And that is perfectly fine. Not every hobby has to be a serious pursuit. In fact, telling someone you just dabble in something is a great way to lower expectations. If someone asks if you speak French, you could say, I dabble in it, which means you know a few phrases, but you are not fluent.
That is a very useful social strategy. It takes the pressure off. Now, let us talk about the term passion project. This is a phrase that has become very popular recently. A passion project is a piece of work or an activity that you do because you love it, not because you have to do it for your job or for money.
It often involves a lot of creativity. For example, someone might have a passion project where they are restoring an old car in their garage, or maybe they are writing a collection of short stories. It is something that gives you a sense of purpose outside of your professional life.
I think this podcast started as a passion project for us, Emma. We both love teaching and communicating, and we wanted to create something that actually helped people connect. It was not about the business side, it was about the passion for the English language.
It absolutely was, and when you describe something as a passion project to another person, it tells them that this activity is very close to your heart. It invites them to ask more meaningful questions, like what inspired you to start that, or what has been the biggest challenge so far.
That brings us to the importance of follow-up questions. When you are talking about hobbies, the conversation should be a two-way street. If I tell you I am into photography, a good follow-up would not just be, "Oh, that is nice."
Right. You would want to ask something like, what do you like to take photos of? Or do you prefer digital or film? These questions show that you are listening and that you are interested in the details of their life.
Let us look at some different categories of hobbies and how we might describe them using this new vocabulary. Let us start with sports and physical activities. Emma, you mentioned you like being active.
I do. I would say I am a fitness enthusiast. That is another good phrase. Instead of saying I exercise, saying I am an enthusiast shows passion. I mainly focus on yoga. I had been practicing for 5 years, but I would not say I have mastered it yet. Yoga is a lifelong journey.
And for me, with running, I would say I am training for a half marathon. This gives the listener a specific goal to ask about. It is much more engaging than saying, I run. When you give a specific detail or a goal, it opens up the conversation.
What about creative hobbies like arts and crafts? Suppose someone likes to knit or paint.
They could say something like, I find knitting very therapeutic. It is my go-to activity to unwind after work. The word therapeutic is great here because it explains the why behind the hobby. It shows that the hobby helps them relax.
Or if they are very skilled, they might say, I have been honing my craft for a long time. To hone your craft means to sharpen your skills and get better at what you do. It applies beautifully to things like woodworking, cooking, or even writing.
Cooking is a big one. Many people say I like cooking, but imagine saying I love experimenting with Mediterranean cuisine. Lately, I have been trying to master the art of making homemade pasta. That sounds so much more delicious and interesting.
It really does. It paints a picture in the mind of the listener. Now, let us talk about how to mention hobbies in a more formal setting, like a job interview. Liam, do you think it is important to talk about hobbies when you are trying to get a job?
I think it is crucial, but you have to frame it correctly. Employers look for hobbies that demonstrate soft skills. If you say you are the captain of a local soccer team, it shows leadership and teamwork. If you mention a passion project like building a website, it shows initiative and technical curiosity.
That is very true. You can use phrases like, in my personal time, I am dedicated to, or I enjoy challenging myself by. This shows that you are a proactive person who likes to grow even when you are not being paid to do so.
And if you are asked about something you are just starting, you can use our phrase from earlier. You might say, I have recently started to dabble in data analysis because I am curious about how numbers can tell a story. It shows you have a growth mindset.
I love that. A growth mindset is something every employer wants to see. Now, let us pivot slightly to discuss how to talk about hobbies that might be considered a bit unusual or niche. Sometimes people are shy about their interests because they think they are too nerdy or strange.
Oh, I think those are the best hobbies to talk about. Whether it is bird watching, collecting vintage stamps, or playing complex board games, these hobbies make you unique. The key is to explain them with enthusiasm.
Exactly. You could say, I have a bit of an unusual interest, but I find it fascinating. I collect old vinyl records. There is something about the sound quality that you just cannot get from digital music. By acknowledging it is niche, you make it an interesting talking point.
And you can use the phrase, I'm a bit of a For example, I'm a bit of a history buff. A buff is someone who is very knowledgeable and interested in a particular subject. You can be a movie buff, a tech buff, or a coffee buff.
I am definitely a coffee buff. I can spend 20 minutes talking about the difference between various coffee beans and brewing methods. It might be a bit much for some people, but for others, it is a great way to bond.
That is the beauty of hobbies. They help you find your tribe. They help you find people who share your specific interests. But to do that, you need the right words to describe your level of interest.
Let us recap some of the phrases for different levels. For low interest or just starting, we have dabble in or I am just getting into it. For medium interest, we have I am a fan of or I enjoy. For high interest, we have I am obsessed with, I am a buff, or it is a passion project.
And for the highest level of skill, we have master a skill or hone my craft. Another good one for high intensity is I am a diehard fan. This is usually used for sports or music bands. If you never miss a game, you are a diehard fan.
We should also talk about the frequency of hobbies. How often do you do them? You can say, I try to make time for it every weekend, or I fit it in whenever I can. Making time for something shows that it is a priority for you.
That is a common struggle, isn't it? People often say, I wish I had a hobby, but I am too busy. If you were talking to someone like that, you might say, I understand, but I find that even 15 minutes of reading a day helps me stay grounded.
Grounded is a lovely word. It means feeling mentally and emotionally stable. Hobbies are so important for that. They give our brains a break from the stresses of work and daily chores.
They really do. Let us try a little role play for our listeners so they can hear these words in a natural context. Emma, let us imagine we are at a coffee shop and we just met. I will start.
Sounds good. I am ready.
So Emma, what do you like to do when you are not busy with work?
Well, lately I have been spending a lot of time on a passion project of mine. I am actually trying to learn how to restore antique furniture. It is a bit messy, but I find it really rewarding to see something old become beautiful again. How about you?
That sounds fascinating. I am not that handy, unfortunately. I mostly dabble in photography. I take my camera out on hikes and try to capture some landscapes. I am nowhere near mastering it yet, but it is a great way to get some fresh air.
Oh, photography is wonderful. Do you have a favorite spot to go hiking?
I really like the trails near the coast. The light there is incredible for photos. I am a bit of a nature buff, so any excuse to be outside is good for me.
See, that was a very natural flow. We used passion project, dabble in, mastering, and buff all in just a few sentences. It did not feel like a vocabulary lesson. It felt like a real connection.
And that is the goal for all of our listeners. We want you to feel comfortable weaving these words into your daily life. It might feel a bit strange at first to use a new phrase, but the more you say it, the more natural it becomes.
One thing I noticed in our role play was the use of the word rewarding. That is a great adjective to describe a hobby. It means the activity gives you a sense of satisfaction or happiness.
Yes, rewarding, fulfilling, and relaxing are the big three when it comes to describing why we do what we do. On the other hand, if a hobby is difficult, you might describe it as challenging, but worth it.
Like learning a language. For many of our listeners, learning English is their main hobby or even a passion project. It can be incredibly challenging, but the reward of being able to communicate with people all over the world is huge.
Exactly. And to our listeners, if you are feeling frustrated, just remember that you're currently honing your craft. Every podcast you listen to, every comment you write, you are moving closer to mastering the skill of English.
I love that perspective. It turns a difficult task into a rewarding pursuit. Now, Liam, let us talk about how to gracefully end a conversation about hobbies. Sometimes people can go on for a long time about their interests.
That is true. If someone is a diehard fan of something you don't really understand, it can be hard to stay engaged. You can say something like, that sounds like a lot of dedication, or I really admire your passion for that. It acknowledges their interest without requiring you to know everything about it.
and then you can transition. You could say, I have actually been looking for a new hobby myself. Do you have any recommendations for a beginner? This shifts the focus back to a more general topic.
Great tip. Another thing to keep in mind is the use of gerunds. We often use the ing form of the verb when talking about hobbies. I like swimming. I enjoy hiking. I love cooking. It is a very common grammatical pattern that you should get comfortable with.
But you can also use the infinitive. I like to swim. I love to cook. Both are correct, though the ing form often feels a bit more natural when talking about the activity as a whole.
We have covered a lot today. We talked about the importance of specificity, using advanced vocabulary like passion project and dabbling, and how to use hobbies to build connections in both social and professional settings.
We should also remind our listeners that it is okay to have many hobbies or just one. Some people are multi-passionate and they dabble in everything. Others focus their entire lives on mastering one single skill. Both paths are valid.
I think I am definitely the multi-passionate type. I want to try everything at least once. My latest thing is trying to bake sourdough bread. It is a very trendy hobby right now, but it is much harder than it looks.
Oh, sourdough is definitely a skill that takes time to master. There is a lot of science involved with the fermentation and the temperature. It is basically a chemistry experiment you can eat.
That is exactly how I describe it. It is my kitchen science project. See, even a simple word like project adds a bit of flavor to the description.
Before we start to wrap up, let us do a quick recap of the key terms we want our listeners to take away today. Liam, do you want to start?
Sure. First, we have passion project. This is something you do for the love of it, usually something creative or long-term that is not part of your job.
Second, we have dabble in. This means to try something out in a casual way without being a serious expert. It is perfect for when you are just starting a new interest.
Third, we have master a skill. This describes the process of becoming an expert through hard work and consistent practice.
We also mentioned being a buff, like a movie buff or a history buff, which means you are very knowledgeable about a specific subject.
And finally, we talked about honing your craft, which is about the continuous improvement of a specific artistic or technical skill.
These words will really elevate your English. Instead of saying, I have a hobby, you can now say, I am working on a passion project, or I have been honing my craft as a writer.
It sounds so much more professional and fluent. Now, before we go, I want to remind you of the question we asked at the beginning. How is this episode going to help you today?
Maybe it will help you feel more confident at a dinner party tonight. Maybe it will help you answer that tricky question in a job interview tomorrow. Or maybe it will just give you the words to talk about that thing you love but were afraid to mention.
Whatever it is, please let us know in the comments. We are so excited to see how you use these phrases in your own lives. And remember, we read every single comment. We want to support you on your journey to mastering the English language.
It has been such a pleasure talking with you today, Liam. I always learn something new during our sessions.
I feel the same way, Emma. It is always a highlight of my week. And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in to the How to Better English podcast.
Keep practicing, keep dabbling, and keep striving to master your skills. You are doing a great job.
We will be back next week with another topic to help you level up your English. Until then, take care and have fun with your hobbies.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye for now.